The street that I live on is usually just shy of 2,000 steps. One raw February evening, however, it became much, much longer. The day started out as any other. I clipped a leash onto Buster, my German Shepherd, and we set off on a walk. My neighborhood was a half-mile road with a dead end. There were shade trees everywhere, mostly sycamore, and houses weren't too close together. 10 minutes down the street, my neighbor Eli was working on a rusty pickup truck parked across his lawn. "Morning, Austin. Morning, Buster," he said, pulling his head out from under the hood. "Morning, Eli. How's things?" "Bad. Real bad." He cleaned his hands with a filthy rag, then grabbed the doggy biscuit from the front pocket of his boiler suit. "And I mean 10 tons of liquid shit's about to hit the fan bad." He snapped the treat in two, offered half to Buster, and then ate the rest himself. "How come? Haven't you seen all those UFO reports?" I fought the urge to roll my eyes. "Aliens are invading?" "Nope, but think about it. They're getting plastered all over the news. That means it's a false flag. Something big's going down, and they need a distraction." It was hard to pinpoint who they were exactly. At any given moment, they could refer to the Democrats, the CCP, or the Illuminati. Eli walked around his truck and said, "Storm's coming, man." At the sight of a stack of weapons stashed in the bed, my forearm hairs stirred. "It'll pay to be prepared. You want to buy an ambush 3000? He grabbed a rifle from the pile and pointed it at my chest. I quickly ducked out of the way and said, "Maybe some other time." As I walked away, he shouted, "You'll wish you had this bad boy when the Great Reset starts." "And you'll probably blast someone's head off," I whispered. I didn't know how right I was. At the very end of the street, Carl Watson marched from his front porch to the garage, 3 thick power cables slung across his shoulder like high-tech umbilical cords. If you'd asked Eli, he would have told you Carl was a mad scientist due to the gadgets in his garage and this one incident where he blew out every electrical appliance on the block. Carl's wife, Joyce, had vanished 3 years earlier, which convinced Eli that she'd been used as part of some twisted experiment. When Carl slid open the shutter to his garage, I glimpsed at what resembled a jet engine turned on its side. Whatever that thing was, there had to be at least a dozen federal laws against operating one. Carl pulled the shutter closed, and a moment later, I felt a faint rumble. Arriving home, my Fitbit counted 1,987 steps. I unclipped Buster and went into the garage where my wife, Teresa, was hunched over her laptop. "Morning, honey," she said. "Good walk?" I kissed her from behind. Eli almost shot me, and Carl Watson's building a nuclear bomb. Anything unusual happen?" I smiled. "Nope." That evening, when the sun was 3/4 of the way below the western row of houses, Buster and I set off again. Outside, 2 kids paused their spirited frisbee game to let us past. Since Eli wasn't in his yard, we didn't stop for treats. Buster shot me his big puppy dog eyes and whimpered, "Sorry, bud. Maybe we'll catch him on the way back." 5 minutes later, there was a sudden noise from the direction of Carl's garage. Then every street light flicked off at once. Through the darkness, I saw it. A glimmer of blue light. Buster growled and tugged on his leash. The glimmer became a double line that shot towards us, cutting through the road. My stomach turned and turned as the ground rumbled like a plane battling turbulence. I did my best not to vomit while Buster pulled until his leash slipped out of my hand, giving me a painful friction burn. As the ground slowly settled, I crab-walked to a nearby mailbox and held on until the sensation of vertigo had passed. Above my head, streetlights blinked on one at a time. Before I could work out what happened, there were noises from all around. Car alarms blaring, people screaming, confusion, panic. Had there been an earthquake? No wonder Buster got spooked. The dumb mutt was already long gone, so I jogged back up the street, calling his name until I reached Eli's place. On both sides of the road, there were downed trees and broken windows. I rapped Eli's door and waited a few seconds. Beyond my reflection in the side light, he approached from behind. I turned and said, "Hey, have you seen Bus—" At the sight of his rifle, my voice trailed off. He had it pointed at my face. I held up my hands. Eli? You're one of them, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. It was more of an accusation. Them? No, it's me, Austin. Yeah, right. And I'm Bunsen fucking Honeydew. If my feet weren't cemented to the spot, I would have bolted. Instead, I just said, Eli, you're not making sense. I'm Austin. I walk past here twice a day, remember? Yeah, right. If you're the real Austin, then where's Buster? I don't know, I stammered. He took off. I came here looking for him. Oh, how convenient. On your knees, cyborg. Cyborg? He'd lost whatever portion of sense he had left. With a trembling voice, I said, Eli, you... He came forward. Shut the fuck up. Who sent you? I'm just looking for Buster. He touched the cold barrel to the space between my eyes. Last chance. Who sent you? My heart pounded in my ears. To do what? To kill me, motherfucker. Eli, buddy, how about... Your little human disguise ain't fooling anyone, asshole. What's your endgame here? Turn the whole neighborhood into a battle royale? I bet the cocksuckers who built you are creaming their pants right about now. I can see the headlines already. Chaos in the streets. Neighbor against neighbor. Stay inside your homes. He licked his lips. Well, if the tech boys are listening, here's a message from me. I'm onto your little game, and I'm turning every last one of these tin cans into scrap. There was another sudden rumble. This time the street warped, like a body of water disturbed by a pebble, and bright spots danced before my eyes. As the ground rippled and swayed, Eli windmilled his arms, struggling to maintain balance. My survival instinct finally kicked in, and the moment the street settled, I made a desperate break for it. Eli screamed, "Get back here, motherfucker!" and opened fire. My daring escape was cut short by dirt clumps exploding across Eli's lawn, so I dove behind his truck instead. As the bullets pierced the cabin window, I pushed my back flat against a tire and laced my fingers behind my skull. When the shooting finally stopped, I peeked beneath the undercarriage and saw a pair of feet circle around the truck. Eli had the drop on me before I could even react. I slowly stood and threw both arms straight up in the air. Before Eli could take the shot, a cloud of red mist erupted from his skull. He collapsed forward, spraying warm blood all over my face and shirt. Past Eli's corpse, there was another, identical Eli, standing with his rifle. This one looked at me and said, "If you're the real Austin, tell me something only you would know." While I scrambled to think, he loaded a clip and took aim. The UFOs! The UFOs were a false flag! He nodded. We gotta get inside. I looked from one Eli to the other and blinked several times. Living Eli snatched the rifle from the other's corpse. After a quick glance at the shiny gray brain matter seeping into the lawn, I followed Eli into his garage where he flicked a switch to close the automatic door. A stale smell of rotted newspapers and chemicals filled the cramped space. Eli set both rifles on a worktop, reached into a cabinet mounted against the wall, and pulled out a medkit. I struggled to speak several times. Who was... What... When did... It's them, Austin. They're making their moves. Them? Eli, that was you back there. That wasn't me. That was a clone. For several seconds, my thoughts turned inwards towards explanations for what I'd seen. Twins? Lookalikes? Head trauma caused by a nasty fall. A fucking clone? Mm-hmm. They created copies of everybody in the neighborhood. They saw the voting records for the district and decided we had to be replaced. Were you hit? He held up a roll of bandages. Not entirely sure of the answer, I inspected my legs and torso. My shirt was soaked with blood, although none of it was my own. No. Good. In that case, you can help me with the interrogation. There were a few beats of silence. Interrogation? Beyond a door to my left, I heard a muffled scream. Yep, I've captured one of the clones, but son of a bitch ain't talking. Yet. We're gonna have to extract the information. He rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a set of metal pliers. Following him towards the door, I said, Eli. That other Eli, he said something about cyborgs. That's just what they want us to think. Eli pushed the door open and flicked on the lights. And all those tremors, the lights going out. What the fuck? When I saw who was in that cramped space, it felt like I'd been socked in the stomach. A figure was sitting on the floor, arms suspended above their head. Their mouth was taped shut, and their blood-soaked fringe clung to their forehead. One eye was swollen shut, and the other wide with terror. The scene was so disturbing and unexpected that it took me a full minute to realize the craziest part of this whole situation, which was that I actually recognized the scarred figure staring up at us. It was me.